These 15 forgotten R&B and soul one-hit wonders created chart-topping masterpieces that defined an era. Yet their names have vanished from music history. From Timmy Thomas, who stripped soul down to its bare essentials with just a drum machine and organ.
Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
To Ann Peebles, whose atmospheric Memphis masterpiece influenced everyone. Then there was Deodato, who transformed classical fanfares into Grammy-winning funk. Their incredible hits deserve to make them superstars, but the cruel mathematics of the music industry had other plans. Foster Sylvia was only 12 years old when he became one of the youngest artists to ever score a major hit on both the R&B and pop charts. Backed by his family group, the Sylvias, this Detroit kid created Misdemeanor, a playful funk pop track that would outlast his brief moment in the spotlight. The song combined infectious pop sensibilities with sophisticated funk grooves, creating a sound that felt both youthful and mature beyond his years. The track climbed steadily up the charts in 1973, eventually reaching number 7 on the R&B chart and number 22 on the Hot 100. For a family act from Detroit, this represented incredible success in an era when crossing over from R&B to mainstream pop required something truly special. The song's groove was so timeless that it would later be discovered by hip-hop producers decades later, becoming a favorite sample source for artists looking to capture that classic 1970s feel. Foster's voice carried a maturity that seemed impossible for someone his age, delivering lyrics with confidence and swagger that belied his years. The production featured tight drums, punchy bass lines, and horn arrangements that gave the track a professional polish equal to anything coming out of Motown or Philadelphia International Records. The family clearly understood how to craft a hit, with every element working together to create something irresistible. However, the follow-up singles failed to capture the same magic that had made their debut so special. The music industry proved unforgiving to child performers who couldn't consistently deliver hits, and Foster found himself struggling to maintain relevance as he grew older. The transition from child star to mature artist proved impossible to navigate, and soon the Sylvias were just another name in the one-hit wonder history books. Brighter Side of Darkness emerged from the Chicago high school scene in 1973 with Love Jones, a sophisticated track that was far more mature than their teenage years would suggest. This slow-burn ballad was built around spoken-word monologues, lush strings, and a hypnotic groove that showcased these young musicians' incredible talent. The track combined the emerging, quiet storm aesthetic with traditional soul music, creating something that felt both contemporary and timeless. The track was built around lush string arrangements that provided a cinematic backdrop for the group's smooth harmonies. The rhythm section locked into a hypnotic groove that pulled listeners into the song's romantic narrative, while the production showcased the kind of attention to detail typically reserved for major label releases. The spoken word elements gave the song a theatrical quality that set it apart from other R&B tracks of the era. Radio programmers immediately recognized the song's crossover potential, and it began climbing both the R&B and pop charts simultaneously. The track eventually peaked at number 3 on the R&B chart and number 16 on the Hot 100, earning gold certification and establishing the group as rising stars in the soul music world. For a group of teenagers from Chicago, this level of success was almost unprecedented. The achievement brought major label attention and the promise of a bright future in the music industry. Industry executives saw the group as the next big thing in soul music, with the maturity of their sound suggesting they could evolve and grow with changing musical trends. Plans were made for a full album and a national tour to capitalize on their breakthrough success. Unfortunately, their follow-up single, I Owe You Love, completely failed to connect with audiences, and the group's momentum disappeared almost overnight.
I owe you love, got to pay all my I owe you.
The band dissolved within a year after their follow-up single failed to catch fire, leaving behind only the memory of what might have been. Timmy Thomas created Why Can't We Live Together, one of the most innovative and influential soul records of the 1970s. Using nothing more than a drum machine, an organ, and his soaring falsetto voice.
Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
This minimalist approach was decades ahead of its time, predicting the stripped-down electronic soul that would dominate the 1980s and beyond. The song emerged from Thomas's frustration with the Vietnam War and social inequality, channeling his emotions into a plea for human understanding after watching Walter Cronkite report Vietnam death tolls on the CBS Evening News. The track's sparse arrangement allowed every element to breathe and resonate with maximum impact. The drum machine provided a mechanical pulse that contrasted beautifully with Thomas's organic, emotional vocal delivery. Sustained organ chords created a spiritual atmosphere that elevated the song beyond simple protest music into something approaching gospel. The combination was haunting and powerful, unlike anything else on the radio at the time. The song's message of unity and peace resonated with audiences struggling through turbulent times, and it quickly became a crossover anthem. Radio stations across the country embraced the track, propelling it to #1 on the R&B chart and #3 on the Hot 100. The success proved that innovative production and sincere emotion could overcome any lack of traditional instrumentation or big-budget recording techniques. The influence of this stripped-down sound would be felt for decades, with early house music producers and synth-driven funk artists drawing inspiration from Thomas's minimalist aesthetic. The track's hypnotic quality and emotional directness created a template that countless artists would follow, including Drake, who sampled it for Hotline Bling.
You used to call me on my cell phone, late night when you need.
Despite its groundbreaking nature and commercial success, Thomas never managed to replicate this achievement with subsequent releases, eventually moving into behind-the-scenes roles as a producer. New York City delivered I'm Doing Fine Now, one of the smoothest harmony group performances of the early 1970s, with their bittersweet breakup anthem that perfectly captured the pain and acceptance of a relationship's end.
I'm doing fine now without you, baby.
This polished vocal group emerged from the urban soul scene with a sound that borrowed heavily from the Philadelphia International Records playbook, while adding their own sophisticated edge. The production, handled by legendary producer Tom Bell, elevated their natural harmonies into something truly special. The song featured the kind of lush string arrangements and falsetto leads that would become synonymous with the Philly soul sound. But New York City brought an urban polish that felt distinctly contemporary. The lead vocalist's delivery was both vulnerable and confident, telling the story of someone putting on a brave face after heartbreak. The harmonies wrapped around the lead vocal like a warm embrace, providing emotional support for the painful narrative.
I'm doing fine now without you.
Despite carrying the DNA of Philadelphia International Records and having all the elements of a successful soul group, their follow-up singles completely failed to connect with audiences. The group's inability to replicate their initial success puzzled industry observers, who had expected them to become major players in the soul music scene. The momentum from their hit dissipated quickly, and New York City found themselves relegated to the one-hit wonder category. The group's brief moment in the spotlight demonstrated how difficult it was to maintain success in the rapidly changing music industry of the 1970s, where artists needed to consistently deliver hits to survive. Sylvia Robinson shocked the R&B world in 1973 with Pillow Talk, a sensual slow jam that pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable on mainstream radio. This former member of Mickey and Sylvia stepped into the spotlight as a solo artist with a track that featured breathy vocals, shimmering strings, and a slinky bass groove that oozed.
What your friends all say is fine, but can't compete.
The song's provocative nature generated both controversy and curiosity, helping drive it up the charts while prefiguring the quiet storm sound of the following decade. The production showcased a sophisticated understanding of how to create mood and atmosphere through music. Every element was carefully crafted to enhance the song's seductive quality. From the way the strings swelled during emotional peaks to the subtle percussion that kept the groove hypnotic. Sylvia's vocal delivery was confident and sultry, establishing her as a performer who understood the power of suggestion in popular music. Pillow Talk became a massive hit, shooting to #1 on the R&B chart and #3 on the Hot 100, proving that audiences were ready for more mature themes in soul music. The success prefigured the quiet storm sound that would dominate R&B radio in the following decade, with its emphasis on romantic sophistication and late-night appeal. The song's influence could be heard in countless slow jams that followed throughout the 1970s and 1980s. Despite this massive success, Sylvia never repeated this level of achievement as a recording artist. Her follow-up releases failed to capture the same lightning-in-a-bottle magic that had made Pillow Talk so special. The music industry's expectations and changing trends made it difficult for her to find material that could match the impact of her breakthrough hit. Instead of continuing to chase recording success, she made a strategic decision to shift her focus to the business side of the music industry. This move would prove to be incredibly prescient, as Sylvia went on to found Sugar Hill Records and help birth hip-hop as a commercial force, making her legacy much larger than any single-hit record.
My grandma, Sylvia Robinson, she founded the first hip-hop label ever, Sugar Hill Records. As a woman, as a black woman, it was just very dope for her to do that back in her day.
The Independent struck gold with Leaving Me, a tender soul ballad that showcased everything great about Chicago's R&B scene in the early 1970s.
Come over you. Leaving me. Oh, baby. Can't be.
This vocal group created a track that was carried by layered falsetto harmonies, aching string arrangements, and gospel-inspired phrasing that elevated their love song into something approaching spiritual experience. The production captured the group at their absolute peak, with every voice blending perfectly to create an emotional powerhouse. Radio stations across the country embraced the track immediately, recognizing its potential to cross over from R&B to mainstream pop success. The song climbed steadily up both charts, eventually hitting #1 on the R&B chart and #21 on the Hot 100, earning gold certification in the process. For a Chicago vocal group, this represented the kind of breakthrough success that should have launched a lasting career. The achievement brought major label support and industry attention that positioned the group for continued success in the competitive soul music marketplace. Music critics praised their vocal abilities and emotional authenticity, predicting that they would become major forces in R&B music throughout the decade. Plans were made for extensive touring and follow-up recordings to capitalize on their momentum. However, despite being poised for lasting stardom, The group disbanded by 1975 after their subsequent singles failed to replicate the crossover success of their breakthrough hit. The competitive nature of the music industry and changing musical trends made it impossible for them to maintain their initial impact. Ann Peebles delivered "I Can't Stand the Rain," one of the most atmospheric and influential Memphis soul tracks of the decade, with a song that built its entire identity around restraint and subtle power.
I can't stand the rain against my window.
Working with the legendary High Records production team, she created a track that was built on a hypnotic hi-hat rhythm and her own incredible vocal control. The song's minimalist approach allowed every element to have maximum impact, creating something that felt both intimate and universal. The track's unique atmosphere caught the attention of radio programmers and music critics, who recognized something special in its hypnotic groove and emotional authenticity. "I Can't Stand the Rain" climbed to number 6 on the R&B chart and number 38 on the Hot 100, establishing Peebles as a significant voice in soul music. The success brought national attention and opportunities to work with other major artists and producers throughout the decade. The song's influence extended far beyond its chart performance, with music legends like John Lennon calling it the best song ever and countless artists covering it over the years. Decades later, it would be famously sampled by Missy Elliott for The Rain, "Supa Dupa Fly," introducing the track to a new generation and proving its timeless appeal.
Against my window.
The atmospheric production and emotional depth made it a favorite among serious music fans and critics. Despite this critical acclaim and the song's lasting influence, Peebles never managed to achieve the same level of mainstream success with her subsequent releases like "I'm Gonna Tear Your Playhouse Down" or "99 Pounds."
25 pound tenderness in each and every touch.
The music industry's focus on immediate commercial results rather than artistic development meant that her unique talent never received the sustained support it deserved. Skylark emerged from the Canadian music scene with "Wildflower," one of the most tender and enduring ballads of the era, creating a track that would touch hearts for generations. Despite the band's brief existence, the song was anchored by a gentle piano progression and soaring string arrangements that provided the perfect backdrop for Donnie Gerard's heartfelt baritone delivery. The production achieved a delicate balance between intimacy and grandeur that made the song feel both personal and universal. The composition showcased sophisticated songwriting that elevated a simple love song into something approaching art. Every element was carefully crafted to enhance the emotional impact, from the way the piano introduced each section to the strategic placement of orchestral swells. Gerard's vocal performance was both technically accomplished and emotionally authentic, delivering each line with the kind of sincerity that made listeners believe every word. The song's commercial appeal was immediately apparent to radio programmers, who embraced it across multiple formats. The track climbed to number 9 on the Hot 100 and number 5 on the Adult Contemporary chart, proving its ability to connect with diverse audiences. The success brought international attention and opportunities that should have established Skylark as a major force in popular music. The song's enduring quality would be proven decades later when it was sampled by artists like Tupac and Jamie Foxx, introducing its beautiful melody to hip-hop audiences and demonstrating its timeless appeal. The track's emotional authenticity and musical sophistication made it a favorite for wedding dances and romantic moments, ensuring its place in popular culture long after the band's dissolution. Unfortunately, despite the song's massive success and lasting influence, Skylark disbanded shortly after its release. The pressures of the music industry and internal conflicts prevented the group from capitalizing on their breakthrough hit, leaving behind only this one perfect song as evidence of their potential. New Birth broke through the crowded soul music landscape with It's Been a Long Time, a slow-burning ballad that showcased everything great about ensemble R&B groups of the early 1970s.
Such a long time since I saw you.
This sprawling collective created a track that featured lush horn arrangements, shimmering strings, and layered male and female harmonies that created a wall of sound, both powerful and sophisticated. The production demonstrated the kind of attention to detail and musical ambition that separated the great soul records from merely good ones. The song's arrangement allowed different sections of the group to shine at various moments, creating a dynamic listening experience that revealed new details with each play. The horn section provided punctuation and emotional emphasis, while the string arrangements added cinematic scope that elevated the track beyond typical soul ballad territory. The interplay between male and female voices created interesting textures and emotional contrasts that kept listeners engaged throughout. Radio stations recognized the track's commercial potential immediately, and it began climbing both the R&B and pop charts simultaneously. The song eventually reached number 4 on the R&B chart and number 26 on the Hot 100, giving the ensemble their single brush with mainstream stardom. The success brought major label support and opportunities for extensive touring that should have established them as permanent fixtures in the soul music world. The group's size and musical ambition made them perfect for the era's preference for elaborate soul productions and sophisticated arrangements. Music critics praised their vocal abilities and instrumental skills, predicting continued success in an industry that seemed hungry for exactly what New Birth was offering. The combination of talent, timing, and industry support appeared to be perfect for sustained success. However, despite all these advantages and their undeniable talent, the group never managed to replicate the commercial impact of their breakthrough hit. The competitive nature of the soul music marketplace and changing musical trends made it difficult for them to maintain their momentum and commercial relevance. Deodato achieved something that seemed impossible in 1973 when he transformed Also sprach Zarathustra, a classical composition, into a funk masterpiece that dominated both jazz and pop charts. This Brazilian arranger and pianist took Richard Strauss's famous fanfare and reimagined it through the lens of contemporary jazz funk, creating something that was both respectful to the original composition and completely modern in its execution. The result was a track that proved even the most serious classical music could groove when placed in the right hands. The arrangement showcased Deodato's incredible understanding of both classical structure and contemporary rhythm, seamlessly blending orchestral elements with funky bass lines and jazz harmonies. The track built tension like a classical piece, while maintaining the kind of groove that made people want to dance, creating something entirely unique in the musical landscape. Every section of the orchestra was given moments to shine, but always within the context of an irresistible funk rhythm. The song's commercial success was unprecedented for a jazz fusion instrumental, reaching number 2 on the Hot 100 and winning a Grammy for Best Pop Instrumental Performance. This achievement proved that audiences were hungry for sophisticated music that didn't sacrifice accessibility for artistic ambition. The track's success opened doors for other jazz artists to experiment with pop and funk elements in their own work. The Grammy win established Deodato as a major force in contemporary music and brought international attention to his unique approach to arrangement and production. Music critics praised his ability to bridge classical and contemporary worlds, while radio programmers appreciated having an instrumental track that could compete with vocal hits for listener attention. The success seemed to position him perfectly for continued crossover success. Despite this massive breakthrough and critical acclaim, Deodato never managed to achieve the same level of mainstream success with his subsequent releases. The music industry's difficulty in categorizing and marketing his unique style meant that his moment of pop success remained an isolated achievement in an otherwise successful but more underground career. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.